Welcome to Crime, Corrections, and Culture, where we give you the truth and nothing but the truth about the criminal justice system. And we even sometimes do it woefully underdressed, especially when it's 91 degrees outside. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and my co host is the wonderful Persephone. And I'm just going to turn it right over to her and let her get to it.
So, for anybody who hasn't been following along, we're reading Inside the Criminal Mind by Dr. Stanton Samenow, and we're on chapter 13, which is Locked Up, which is where he first starts talking about criminals in prison. And this was a fun, horrible chapter to read.
Oh, my Lord.
Well, it was. Hello, stars for Amy. Welcome back.
Wow, both Amy's here
Amy and
again, and Olive.
Amy
What did they?
and Olive.
What did they boycott us and then just decide to come back all of a sudden?
They were wherever Deeper with Diego was.
He was back the other day too.
So this chapter, he's talking about inmates in prison, and there was a lot of interesting things. But one of the things that he said, which was one of the only things that I highlighted in this chapter, was whereas it is true that most inmates have little interest in change, they do not interfere with the small number that do. Do you think that that's true?
No.
Do criminals interfere with the people who want to change?
Yes, they do. I don't. I need you to elaborate a little because I want to know exactly what he's talking about. Because it's not as if the other inmates go around harassing the inmates and telling them you must not change, right?
Yeah,
But the very method of the way in which they live interferes with the inmates that are trying to change.
so he's he's talking about, okay, so what he actually says is a related fallacy is that it is impossible for an incarcerated criminal to change because of the corrosive influence of the prison culture. In one of its publications, the Michigan Family Impact Seminar stated social survival involves evasive and deceitful behaviors and aggression and violence. A prison environment discourages the behaviors required to be a responsible person,
Mm-hmm.
or even a caring and compassionate adult. Whereas it is true that most inmates have little interest in change, they do not interfere with a small number that do. That's all he says. So basically, he's saying that, I guess, he's talking about the idea that prison is a crime factory, right, or a crime university,
Right.
where
So the
in
idea, let me say, I think the idea that criminals go to prison and learn how to be criminals is bullshit, and he knows that, and that's true, and it's also true that by and large, when you're trying to change, you're not dealing with harassment from the other inmates. However, if you're getting into conversations with them about change, you will get harassed. If they want you to do something for them that you're not supposed to be doing and you refuse, then they will give you a hard time. But in the prison that I was in, they weren't going to go then beat you up over it. I mean, so it wasn't that extreme. So in one sense, yeah, they're not like openly running around trying to stop the other inmates from changing, but they do help to present significant obstacles to that change.
yes. So I mean, what did you say? That people. I'm trying to remember the exact words that you used. Like now, just now, when you said like prison is not like a crime university.
No, you don't go there. Like, there's this idea that people go to prison and they're basically like, you're going to have this innocent babe in the woods type guy, and he goes to prison and they teach him how to be a crook. No, that generally is not the case.
Okay, I'll agree with you. But so one of the things that he does talk about, oh, I'm jumping ahead. I'm jumping around. Can I ask you? So he says that when the criminal first gets to into prison, when he's first like his first couple of days in the prison, there's a period of like genuine remorse and fear and depression, but it doesn't last long. What was your like first little bit in prison like? Do you
Self-pity.
remember?
Yeah, a lot of self-pity. Oh my God, poor me. They're gonna screw me. I'm really the same. You know, you have to think about it in terms of the person who thinks he's basically a good person. And now you've done something, and the reason you did it most likely is you thought it was justified in some way, or else you wouldn't be doing it. And now you're being punished for it. I mean, so how do you think a person's going to react to that? Right? Like, if just imagine if you did what you were supposed to be doing, and then they came and put you in prison for it, you'd be pissed. So when you think you're a good person and they come and snatch you up and put you in prison, you're pissed and sad and feel bad for yourself. You know, and maybe there's some guilt. There wasn't for me. I just thought everybody else was screwing me at this point.
You didn't experience, even when you got to prison, you didn't experience any sort of sense of like remorse or guilt, or like maybe I did do something wrong
No. Regret, like, oh no,
for
because
being
now I'm in
caught,
prison. Yeah, but no.
but not regret for what you actually did, just like.
No.
So you
No.
felt you had like convinced that you were justified in what you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wild. Um. So I thought you were going to go into a little bit more detail about what your first little bit in prison was like.
Well, you should ask me a little bit more about it, and I will. But you
I,
didn't.
I,
You
I
just
don't.
asked me about whether I felt guilty or I felt bad, so I gave you my answer.
I would like you to talk about your first couple of weeks in prison. Like maybe not your first day, but like your first couple of weeks and what it was like. I'm already just sort of gobsmacked that you thought that you were justified in what you, because to me
Why
I'm
would I
like, well,
do it? If I didn't
I
think it was the just thing to do, why would I do it?
I don't know. Maybe you knew it was wrong, but you didn't care.
I know
That
other
makes
people think it's wrong.
See, to me, I know we're back to trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. But to me, if you knew it was if you knew it was wrong and you did it anyway and you didn't care, that would be one thing. But like genuinely feeling like you were justified, that's different. That's like I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong, and they've locked me up. That's completely different.
But look, you think it's not like I say, yeah, this is a good thing and this is the way people should be living. I don't know really how to convey this to you. What I'm thinking is this: when I'm in prison. So before I went to prison, I tried to join the Navy, right? They contacted me. I went. I did very, very well on their tests. They were willing to help me with my pending court cases, and the court said no. We don't care. No, we're not throwing out his felony charges. This was before the main charge. So in my head, what I'm thinking is, okay, look, I had a terrible upbringing. My parents were horrible. They taught me. They were the ones that taught me to be violent. When I actually tried to do the right thing and join the military, the state refused to let me. And I thought, the victims in my crimes, they had threatened me. They had, done things to me. So, I had an analogy, you don't sign up to play football and then complain when you get tackled. That's how I looked at it. Like, okay, I've been fucked over my whole life, right? When I tried to do the right thing, the government wouldn't let me. The victims in the various cases I had were all, I don't want to use the term aggressive, verbally aggressive toward me. So now I act out, and now you want to take my whole life away from me. I'm not saying this is logical, but it's just this is what's in my head. This is what's going on.
Okay, that does make more sense when you explain it like that. It still doesn't make sense, but it makes more sense. So, what was your first couple of weeks in prison like?
Well, okay, so it's like everything is still so fresh, right? So you're missing everything from being free. All the thing, hanging out with my friends or being able to go here and there. All that's still fresh. Plus, there's, you're I was in a maximum security pretrial detention center. So this is the place where everything that you see on the news, like the crimes that make the news, jogger murdered, or this happened, that happened, double murder, these guys. So you see it on the news, and then you see the guy in the block. So that was part of it. And also all the rationalizations and justifications on how I'm going to actually get away with this and I'm going to end up free. This is not going to hold. So there's a lot of things. Then there's the adjusting to the cellmate. I mean, but the bottom line is it's a situation where you don't accept the reality of what is in front of you. You just think you're going to get out of this somehow.
Were you scared?
Of
Because I
what?
would be.
Of what?
You were in a place full of like violent criminals.
Okay, so no, there I wasn't. Now I need to differentiate something for you. I had previously spent 3 months or two months to 20 days or something in a town lockup. I mean, county jail, city lockup, the pretrial detention center. So I had already been in there, so I knew what to expect when I came in for this time. It was only 6 months apart. When I first got there, so I got arrested on a Friday night. My friend and I had been drinking, doing coke, smoking weed, taking pills, and doing acid. The dude said he wanted to meet in a park to fight, so we went to meet him there to fight. I had a fully loaded handgun in my belt when we went there. He set me up, so the cop was waiting there. So we take off, and the cop pulls us over. When I see the sirens, I swallow the remaining LSD. So I don't know how much LSD I'm on at this point. I get to the police station. I'm thinking they're going to charge me with possession of a handgun, give me a little bond, and let me go. They gave me a $500,000 bond at that point and told me I was being charged with attempted murder on a police officer because they said when the cop pulled me over, I was reaching for my gun. That's not true, but I understand why they thought so. I did reach for the gun to get rid of it, not to pull it out. So that's what they charged me with. So it's Friday night. I'm charged with attempted murder on a police officer, and I'm tripping my balls off. And the town lockup is the bed is you're in a maybe a 4x6 cage with a little steel bed that's not big enough for my whole body and a coarse wool blanket. I thought I was going to get out of there by telling them that I was on drugs. I needed to go to the hospital. Instead, they took me to the hospital and chained me to the wall. So that didn't work. Then I figured I was going to fake suicide and they would have to get me out of there. All they did was take my clothes. So we get to Monday now when I'm going to court. So by the time I get to the county jail, I'm so happy that I'm going to get a shower because I've now been 3 days without a shower, tripping my balls off on acid, locked in a little cell with nothing but a wool blanket in a steel bed. And I'm eating cold McDonald's 3 times a day. So I was happy to get to the lockup facility. So when I get to the lockup facility, yeah, I was scared. But at the same time, it was such a relief that I would have a nice cold bed. I mean, not cold bed, a soft bed relatively to what I'd been in that I could sleep in. And so that's what I'm dealing with. Now, couple weeks in, the most scared I ever was in prison was this. So if you can see, I've got a tattoo of my dog on this arm. Okay, now the part of Hartford that I hung around in is on Franklin Avenue. So when you go in the county jail, the main gang from Hartford, there's 3 gangs that are primarily there. You have the Solitos, 20 Love. Those are overwhelming the larger gangs. And then there was the Latin Kings. Latin Kings are a small gang in Hartford, and therefore they keep them in one part of the jail to keep them safe because they have gang wars with the other two gangs. Their symbol is a pit bull with a crown on it. They also in Hartford happen to be on Franklin Avenue, just on a different part of Franklin Avenue than where I'm hanging around. So somebody says to me, "Where in Hartford are you from?" I said, "Franklin Avenue." So immediately they all think that I'm a Latin king. So now I'm surrounded by gang members who think I'm in the enemy gang, and they're telling me about the tattoo I have. Now there happened to be somebody. The irony is the friends that I had that were gang members were in the other gang. But anyways, I knew somebody who was across on another tier who used to be a high-ranking member in the Latin Kings and knew I wasn't. And so I said, just ask him, and they did. And so it basically got resolved. But when that was going on, yeah, I was scared of that, But that was it. By and large, I wasn't. I mean, I was okay. I wasn't too scared. I mean, a little bit, but not too bad.
I love how easily you brush that off. I love how easily you sort of just went, oh, well, the gang members thought I was part of a rival gang. At that point, I would spontaneously combust. Like, I wouldn't just gloss over that. That's not just like, oh, well,
I mean, but what?
funny story.
Okay, so what do you want? How would you like me to relay the situation?
No, like,
right? There's no way. Like, I wasn't like shaking in my boots. I was nervous, and when I went in the cell, I mean, I was nervous, but I knew that the dude that vouched for me knew a lot of people. So, and then one of the gang members came around, the president, the leader, came around and said, this dude is not in that gang. He said, come here. He said, let me see your tattoo. I said, look. He said, it doesn't even have a crown on it. I said, I know. The problem is these guys don't understand, that most of them are from the north end of Hartford. This is getting way too much in the weeds, and it's way off what we're supposed to be talking about. They didn't understand that Franklin Avenue is a very long street. Right? That's broken up into Italian section and Puerto Rican section. I hung around in the Italian section. They're now attributing me to the Puerto Rican section.
So my point wasn't that you should discuss it differently. My point was that it's insane to me that you can talk about something like that and just be like, eh.
Okay,
Anyway.
I'm going to tell you. So let me just tell you something. Okay. The first time you asked me last time about shooting at people, the first time I ever shot at somebody, I don't know if I hit the guy or not. I went home. My father was sleeping facing the wall. I woke him up. I said, Dad, I just shot this guy. He said, all right, that's good. And he went right back to sleep.
That's good.
Yeah, he basically, yeah, that's cool. That's good. And went right back to sleep. My point is that what you're thinking about are crazy to me is normal. So I remember one time I was selling drugs out of a crack house in Hartford. And I had this girl come pick me up. She comes in the house. There's people shooting dope. They're smoking crack. She was a nurse. And she went sick on me in the car. Are you out of your mind bringing me here? I could lose my nursing license. Like, it was, I didn't know, like, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it seemed normal to me. It wasn't odd. So, I don't know. I mean, it's prison. I mean, that's the type of thing that happens. So, no, it's not abnormal.
I'm not saying it's abnormal. I'm just, to me, it's, I get you though. So, the other thing that he talks about, so you brought up gangs, right? This was the thing that was kind of like terrifying to me, right? So he talks about the gangs and how much power the gangs actually have in the prisons.
Yeah.
And I want to see if I can bring up the actual thing that he said. But he talks about how the gangs in some of the prisons and the prison staff or the corrections people actually had like a quid pro
Oh,
What's
some of
the
the
word I'm trying to
quid
say?
quid pro quo. Some
That
of the
one.
staff members are gang members themselves.
Yeah, but no, we're gonna get to that. But I'm just talking about the fact that they used the gang members
Okay,
to
so
enforce the rules,
I should
basically.
okay. So I went to jail in 1997, right? So you have to understand, in Connecticut in the early 90s, in Hartford, there was a big gang war. This stuff broke out, in various cities in Connecticut and broke out in the prison system. The prison system really, really, really cracked down on gangs. So by the time I got there, that stuff wasn't going on.
In 1997.
Yes, because they had created gang blocks. If you got affiliated with a gang, you got transferred, you were in hell. Nobody wanted to do that. So they really learned how to shut down the gangs by the time I was in prison.
So, according to a report in the Washington Times in 2010, gang related drug activity was the leading cause of prison violence. The advent of the cell phone, although regarded as contraband, has facilitated drug trafficking. Gang leaders are able to maintain contacts outside of the prison walls, as well as with other prisoners. During 2009, in California prisons, they confiscated 5,000 contraband cell phones. And he talks about, so this is in after 2013, they were talking about how officials worked out a quid pro quo agreement with the gangs. So the gang leaders got better accommodations in the prison in payment, basically, for helping to keep the prison functioning properly.
Okay.
So, but I mean that you can't talk about that because they'd gotten it mostly under wraps in
Yes.
where you were. Okay.
Yes.
So the other thing that he talks about in this chapter, which we talked about when we were doing Down the Rabbit Hole, is that a lot of the staff members, and now you can talk about the staff members, they were involved in the drug trafficking and in breaking the law themselves and in bringing the drugs in and distributing them through other inmates. So you were going to tell a story about the staff?
Well, oftentimes they are gang members themselves. So that's a thing. And yeah, you have dirty cops that smuggle things into prison. I mean, there's an abundance of these problems that we have in the prison systems. I don't know how much more to say about it. It's not like every CO is a gang member, but they definitely are some that are gang members.
But not just gang members, because you don't have to be a gang member to be a criminal. So what he talks about is that...
No, but we're specifically talking about gangs.
And now we're pivoting away from gangs.
Oh,
and we're
okay.
going to talk about...
We're going to do the pivot?
We're going to pivot and we're going to talk about other things. Okay, so he talks about the fact that some people become correction staff because the criminal life interests them and they want to be close to the criminals.
Yeah.
So they...
I don't know if that's true. I don't know correctional officers. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It could be true. They certainly, a lot of them exhibit, the criminal mentality. Criminal values, but I can't speak to their motivation for becoming cops. He can't, COs, but he probably could. He's probably interviewed him.
So, I mean, the people that you interacted with, so you talked about, what was his name? Chemin.
This guy again?
Yeah.
What about
you
him?
said that he used to like talk a lot with his favorite gaggle of prisoners.
Yeah.
What did they talk about? Did they ever discuss
I
anything?
wasn't in the meetings. I don't know.
Did you ever?
I know
overhear anything?
I know they talked about sports and chicks, but I don't know about anything else. I mean, I wasn't part of the crew. I wouldn't be invited to speak, amongst them.
What's the point of you?
Huh?
I said, what's the point of you?
What's the point of me?
Yeah.
What do you
Asking
mean?
you questions, you're like, I don't know.
Well, you're
I
asking me
wasn't
questions I don't know the answer to.
I wasn't involved. It's just stuff that was interesting to me. Like, look, I wasn't in prison with you, so when I'm reading the book, I don't know what you know and what you don't know.
I get it, but what do you want me to do? Make up a story?
No, I'm just curious. I mean, you were in prison for a while. Did you ever run into any
Look, I
correctional
know of
staff who
cops.
like to discuss crimes with the
Yeah,
inmates?
yeah, all the time, of course. But you asked me specifically about their motivation for becoming COs.
Oh no, not their well, I mean, yeah, you can't speak to their motivation. You're not in their head. I'm just talking about like the actual experience. Did you see
Listen, you
correctional
can
staff?
hear correctional officers who exhibit the criminal mentality, criminal values, in terms of talking about this inmate's a snitch or that inmate's a snitch, or putting out the other business of the other correctional officers, or talking about having sex with female correctional officers and doing it with the inmates. That's the type of stuff that you see, that you hear. But I'm not the guy. I know of COs that got caught and got arrested for, there was a big thing. If you look this up, look up, for instance, what the hell is his name? Hanley, a maintenance man, Hanley in Connecticut. This guy was giving inmates foot massages and shit. Very weird stuff, and smuggling them stuff in. I know about female correctional officers having sex with inmates, or staff smuggling things into inmates, video games and drugs and whatnot. But I only know because they were caught. Like, they weren't doing it for me. Did you find them?
No, I'm looking.
You have to look up Connecticut prison maintenance man Hanley.
Which is a normal thing. Connecticut prison maintenance man Hanley. Tell a story while I'm busy.
It's so hot in Connecticut, people. It's 91 degrees. I've been complaining about how it's taken so long for summer to get here, and now I remember why I don't really like summer. I'm almost 50, so you think I'd know this by now, but evidently no. Laura loves your headset, by the way.
Thank you, Laura. A widely reported foot massage scandal. No, I'm not finding anything.
You talk, I'll find it.
Fabulous. So, for anybody that's interested and the people that are new, like, we're reading Inside the Criminal Mind. We've posted some chapters from the previous book that we were reading, Down the Rabbit Hole, on the Everyday Ethics Patreon, which is still active but no longer has membership fees because we're moving over to YouTube memberships. But there is still content on the Everyday Ethics Patreon. If you would like to go check it out, we've posted some links. We've posted excerpts from the previous book we read, which was Down the Rabbit Hole. You can also become a channel member where we will be doing extra stuff, especially for this show, because Michael is also going to be bringing on some other criminals to speak to. And also, if you haven't yet, go and watch the extra crime correction and culture episode where
Oh, okay.
Michael
I was
spoke.
having a problem. Okay.
Wait, where Michael spoke to the corner man, Mr. Valeries Cooper, which is a very interesting story and a very horrible story, but a great video. Please go and watch it. It's great.
Okay, so this is what I've got here. I was confused because it kept mentioning a woman. I didn't realize this was a transgender woman. It used to be a dude. But anyway, so during the summer of 2011, Veronica Mae Clark, an incarcerated transgender woman serving a 75-year term of imprisonment for murder, assaulted in burglary, was repeatedly sexually assaulted by defendant appellee Thomas Hanley, a corrections officer at the Connecticut prison facility where Clark was then housed. This dude was basically, I don't know about what happened there with this specific person, but I do know that he was engaging in foot massages. It says, the Connecticut Department of Correction initiated a formal investigation into Hanley in 2010 that uncovered not only his smuggling activities, but also his pattern of propositioning inmates with sexual behavior. There's a whole bunch of them where this guy is engaged in this behavior. My point only is that this is the type of thing I heard about because it's in the news.
But you didn't see it.
No, why would I see it? What?
That, not that specific situation, but like stuff like that.
Yeah, you read about that type of stuff in the paper or the news. You see it on the news. But I certainly have seen corruption and dishonesty and, criminal thinking patterns operative amongst correctional officers. It's just that type of stuff I'm not involved in.
Yeah, but I mean, it also strikes me you wouldn't be because you started trying to be better
Right.
13 months in.
No.
How many months?
I did, and then I didn't. It's not a smooth go. That's what I mean.
Yeah, what's that graph about like what people think progress looks like versus what progress actually looks like?
I don't know. I don't have it.
Again, I ask, what is the point of you? So Samenow actually he says that they are drawn to the work precisely because they identify with the criminal excitement. My
Yes, and
question
that would
was,
not surprise me. Let me put it that way.
well, no, because previously we've talked about the people who actually committed crimes that were correction staff. So, oh, also, when was this the one that I'm reading? You don't know when this one is from, hey?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, so he says that the cost of incarceration, which was 100 at the time that this was published, was $167,000 per year per inmate in New York City, which was, I think, more than the cost of I want to say Harvard or Yale. It was the cost of a very prestigious 4-year university degree.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about that. He also talks, so right in the beginning of the chapter, he talks about like how many people are incarcerated, and it's like 2 million or something like that. Okay,
Yeah.
wait. So he says in mid 1982, when the first edition of this book was being written, there were 394,000 inmates in prison in the United States. At the end of 2011, it was 2.2 million, and 4 million were on probation or parole. In 2012, 1 in every 35 adults in the United States was incarcerated or on probation. And then if you think about the fact that it costs 165, well, it did.
It cost a lot. It cost a lot to house inmates. I think there might be a problem here because I think we might be dealing with a Celsius Fahrenheit situation.
Why?
Because it's 91 Fahrenheit here. It couldn't be Celsius, though. That'd be like 150 degrees, right? Because Stars for Amy says it's 51-ish there. That's in Germany, but they do Celsius, right?
They do Celsius. 51 degrees, it would be
No,
intolerably,
yeah, it'd be too much.
like intolerably hot.
Yeah, okay, so
Like,
she
if
must
it's
be
like-
using Fahrenheit.
She's probably using Fahrenheit because she knows that you use Fahrenheit.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The rest of the world, however, does use Celsius like normal people because it does make more sense. But yeah, 51 degrees would be ridiculous. The hottest it gets here in South Africa is like 45, 46. Which is 115.
All right. All right. Are we ready to rock and roll? We ready to go? We're out of things to talk about.
We're not out of things to talk about, but I do want to go to bed, so we can continue this on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, we will see you folks again. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it tremendously.
Bye.